You're listening to an episode recorded during the time Innovation Fuel was part of University Canada West. We are proud and grateful for the work we've done together, and we want to thank the university for being in our podcast. We are now excited to continue the journey of Innovation Fuel into its next chapter. Thanks for listening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Innovation Fuel, the podcast that brings you fantastic stories from entrepreneurs and key industry professionals. I am Dave Kiran.
And I am Gelareh. We are educators, entrepreneurs, and your hosts. Innovation Fuel is our weekly business podcast brought to you by University Canada West. Each week, we explore diverse business models, entrepreneur journeys, experts' insight, and managerial challenges, and how companies stay agile and innovative during COVID-19. Check out our episodes at www.ucanwest.ca/innovationfuel. Welcome, Paul Brassard. Welcome to Innovation Fuel.
Hello, Paul. Welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you on Innovation Fuel. Paul, we'd love to know where our guests come from. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you ended up here?
Yeah. Oh, well, where do I start? It started with my mom. No, I'm just kidding. It's been a long journey. I think it's like 20 years I've been an entrepreneur now. So it's been a long journey through several businesses, lots of ups and downs, the roller coaster ride. Ultimately where it started is I just kind of fell into it, as it were. Was kind of a musician at one point and just kind of fell into supporting bands and stuff, and then realized that small businesses were kind of similar. So I started helping out small businesses just with business solutions and like basic website development, graphic design, all that kind of stuff. And then eventually that grew, and years passed, and just got a lot of experience with growing companies, business strategy, pitching, presenting, and all of that's culminated into now I'm a knowledge sharer. I love passing on knowledge and helping other entrepreneurs who are in their journeys. And so that's what I do kind of on a daily basis.
So how do you help the entrepreneurs? In what way?
Yeah, great question. So right now, I have my main company is called Volition. And Volition, we build connectivity and capacity and knowledge within the global startup ecosystem. So I'm one of 10, soon to be 12, and stretch goal is 16 by the end of the year, expert advisors on the team. So we provide coaching for entrepreneurs at various stages of their journey, usually anywhere between like launch and Series A. And so in my case, I'm a master pitch and presentation coach, specializing in investor prep. So I work with them on their pitch and presentation, especially if they're getting ready to pitch to fundraise and to investors particularly, or for competitions or anything along those lines. So I work with them on a coaching basis. I also teach a lot in a lot of different scenarios. So one way or another, I'm kind of always teaching or coaching in a lot of cases. So yeah, that's how I do it.
Perfect. I have a question. What's the pitch confident means?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I think ultimately, pitching is one of those funny things. Most people aren't necessarily natural at it. It's like trying to get on stage and start singing, right? Like you've always got those nerves. You've always kind of got, and I think it's interesting because just like singing, where you might write a song and it's your own song and you get up on stage and you're super nervous to show people what you created because you're worried about what they're going to think, right? Pitching is kind of the same, right? So pitching, you've got now, not only have you built this pitch, but it's based on probably a business that you're building, right? And so in a sense, this is like your baby, and now you're showing off your baby, right? And so, of course, there's this level of nervousness. The reality is that, like anything in life, you get more confident with practice. You get more confident with feedback. You learn a lot. And it's funny. literally just finished a pitch event with Volition. We just finished one of our pitch events, which is on our YouTube channel now. And in there, I don't know if I quoted the right person, but I know that Elon Musk, I believe, has said something at some point about every failure is an opportunity to learn, right? And I think it was a quote out of the SpaceX program, particularly. But that's kind of the reality. Is you got to get out there and get in front of people and learn by failing. And I mean, ultimately, quite honestly, that's how I learned. I learned by falling on my face. I didn't go to school for any of this. I just learned by getting out there, trying, having doors slammed in my face, falling on my face, getting back up, trying again, taking feedback, and improving. And so to be pitch confident, I don't know, is that a bit of a misnomer? Is it more just that you've got enough practice and enough feedback that you're now confident with the content, confident with the structure, with the story? I think it's actually putting those elements together that makes you the most confident.
So as we dive deeper into that, let's dive even deeper into that pitch element. And you said building the story, building the element, because, I assume practice makes you better. But if you don't have the right story or the right content and you're not delivering it in an effective way, then we run into some challenges. So, so how do you pull this all together, Paul? How do you support in that journey of pulling it all together?
Yeah, well, at Volition, and it comes off the back of my experience over 14, 15 years of pitching. I guess I'll bring it back to like when I first started pitching. I was working for a tech company at the time. It was my first tech company. It was building an app on Facebook, and it was funny because the owner came in one day and was like, "Oh, you're going to start pitching to investors," and I had never done that before, and I was like, "What? I'm going to do what now?" And I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what to do. And honestly, at the time, this was like in 2006, I think ish. And so the first thing I tried to do, I tried to YouTube, I tried to Google stuff, I tried to find information, but I couldn't really find anything succinct that said like, do this. And so I said, oh, well, gee, what do I do here? Like, how do I do this? And funny enough, we teach this in our Pitch Foundations bootcamp at Volition. And the thing that I really kind of took was, having a pitch, I guess it was off my experience of songwriting as well, of like building a pitch like that. You're telling a story, right? So I kind of looked at it as like every entrepreneur really at the end of the day has a story to tell. If you watch Dragon's Den or Shark Tank or anything like that, they go on and the general entrepreneurial story is like, I was doing a thing happened. So I created a solution to the thing. I asked other people, they needed the solution. They're willing to pay for it. Now I need money to make more of the solution so I can make more money, right? You can kind of fill in the blanks or the variables on all of those things, but essentially there's a story to be told in any sense. And so I just started looking at it and said, okay, well, what's the narrative? And so at Volition, that's really what we honestly, and when I'm coaching clients, the first thing I look for is, what's the narrative story here? How do we turn this into a narrative story that makes sense? Where did this start? Where did it come from? And then where is it going, essentially, right? So it's almost like the simple one would be, what did you do? What are you doing? And what are you going to do? Right? Is one example. So there's some real structures that you can follow depending on the length of the pitch, the type of pitch you're doing. And so creating that narrative. And then the cool thing, I'll end off on the answer on this one, but the cool thing that I've seen out of that is a lot of people, it's funny you asked a question about the confidence piece. I think where people are less confident when they try to memorize everything. It's funny when, as us as humans, we're not good at memorizing things, right? Especially scripts. And even actors, right? Natalie Portman in her masterclass on masterclass.com says it really well. She doesn't memorize the script. She memorizes the story, right? And so she says a lot of times she says in there like that she says what she believes the character will say at that point. And yeah, it follows the narrative. It follows the storyline. But that's the cool thing about building a narrative storyline type pitch is that the story, right? Like at the end of the day, if I said to you, well, who are you? You would say, oh, I'm Dave. And oh, what do? You would know the answers, right? So then the narrative. So it's less memorization and more just, telling your story. right? So I think that's a real bonus.
I think that's so. How about adding evidence-based story? How we say that evidence-based stories, for example, market research. Because I don't know, it's you tell me, please. If I'm pitching in front of investors, they're looking for how much they can gain from my idea.
For sure, absolutely, yeah.
Right? It should be more. I mean, I should have a story, but my story should be evidence-based,
and it should make sense. And, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, for sure, it has to be clear, concise, compelling. I think the thing to remember in a pitch situation, what I always tell people is to get away from the idea that you're walking into a pitch scenario for a check, right? We have to remember that things like Dragons, as lovely as Dragon's Den and Shark Tank and all that stuff is, it's awesome. But we have to remember that's for entertainment, right? So the reality and real investor pitch forums, things like that, whether it's an angel forum or whatever it might be, the real scenario, generally speaking, 99% of the time is that you're there not to get a check, but yeah, that's the goal, the hope, obviously, at the end of the whole journey. But you're really there to whet the appetite for a further conversation, right? So, your end goal is really to be clear, concise, compelling enough that the members of the audience are like, okay, I need to talk to this person more. I need to find out more. So now to answer your question, yeah, for sure. In the pitch, there should be definitely some evidence of your customer research. Obviously, people hear from me all the time. My students make fun of me because they say it's the It Depends show with Paul. But, it does depend. So it depends what stage the company's in. It depends where you're at. So, if you're very early, then your evidence needs to be things like, how many people have you talked to? How much letters of interest do you have, for example, or, do you have any good comment of do you have any evidence that this is something people actually want, and that it's something you can solve? And then, if you're a bit further along, obviously, then the hope is, do you have any revenue yet? Do you have any purchase orders if it's a physical product, let's say, for example? Again, so showing those pieces of evidence. But that's also the bonus with a pitch and presentation is, in most scenarios, of course, you're going to have a pitch, but you're also going to have a pitch deck. And so, as I always say, is your deck is your supporting actor. You are the star of the show. So the evidence can really be in graphics and in images and visuals that you can have supporting you in that presentation, right? So you can say well, yeah, we've got a huge market. Now, you don't have to read the slides to me and say my market is huge. Well, everybody's market is huge, but you could have a graphic on the slide behind you saying that shows how big your market is, right? So yeah, we've got a huge market, and here's how we're going to capture part of it. So here's our plan, right? So yeah.
But I'm sorry. You say something about a stage. How early is it? It means how early? It means earlier stage. I mean, can I pitch if I just have an idea, or it has to be minimum viable product or prototype or something that. What is this? What is the earliest stage? You mean?
Yeah. No, good comment. I mean, it's funny. Over the years, I've discovered that there's a bit broad definitions depending on who you ask. In some cases, even the term startup has a broad definition. I had a client a couple of years ago who that year he was going to report 7 million in revenue, but he still called himself a startup, and he'd been in business for 5 years. So is he a startup? I'm not so sure. But then answering your question, I think there's kind of two questions there. So what does early stage mean? I think early stage is kind of anything before scale, really, to be honest, in my opinion. Early stage is kind of the figure it out-ofness stage, where you're still kind of figuring it out, all the things. You're, let's call it pre-product or service market fit. I think that you're still kind of, like I said, figuring the things out. That's kind of the early stages. So usually that's anywhere from ideation to MVP to launch, and even, well, I guess there'd be pre-launch, launch, and then even post-launch for a period of time, right? Because you're still kind of figuring out things. You're probably getting feedback. You're still making improvements, all that kind of stuff. So now I think the second question you're kind of asking there is well, when do I start pitching? Depending on where I'm at in that early stage. And honestly, in my opinion, and experience even, is that it's almost never too early to start pitching. And I'm going to answer that in two ways. Is that, honestly, I guess one thing that I'm going to say is that to me, when I'm coaching clients or I'm teaching a class on pitching, one of the things I say right away is an investor, by definition for me, when I'm teaching somebody, is not just somebody who invests money, but it could be somebody who invests time, knowledge, connections, right? It could even be an early customer because they're investing in the sense of not necessarily investing money, but investing their time and belief in you, even though you're a startup. And they could go with somebody who's a lot more established, but they're giving you a chance, right? Or an early team member that might take a discount on their salary because they believe in you so much. They're effectively investing in you, right? So at either the early stages, even at ideation, like I would not stop somebody from pitching if they're just idea stage, because it's a great opportunity to get your idea out there, get early feedback, get early interest. Maybe, I've seen situations even at our pitch events at Volition where people have come and pitched very early stage ideas, even when they're just ideas, literally. And then they have somebody I've heard many stories throughout the years. We've now hosted 102 pitch events at Volition. And obviously back when they were live in person, I would hear situations from the networking even of like somebody coming up to somebody. We have a client called Buzzit, a partner and pitch alumni called Buzzit. He found 3 of his developers just from pitching at our events. Because people approached him afterwards and said, John, what you're building sounds amazing. How do we get involved? Right. And it was just the fact that he got out there and pitched, and he had barely even built anything at that point. He just was telling the idea and getting feedback. And so I would say at any stage, it's really beneficial to start pitching. And I want to just say one thing is that there might be somebody out there that says when they hear this, but Paul, I'm scared to tell people my ideas before it's a real thing because somebody might steal my idea.
Yes.
I don't know if that was a question that one of you guys was going to ask.
I was actually, something, Paul, I was going to follow up with that because
Nice.
I think that is the biggest thing. I think IP. And I think this element, I've got this idea, and I love your thought on prayer because I think, we talk about innovation. Innovation is about spreading ideas. We spread the ideas, we learn, we grow from it. We, our idea develops further from input. But IP, like how far do you go and how do you protect that IP when you are spreading that word?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I'm glad that you interrupted me and thank you and asked it that way, because actually that's a really good, I'm going to expand on my answer there, which I think is really good. I think it depends, obviously. So, if this is let's say, I'll give you the example. If you're building a software solution or an app, a good example, again, is our friends at Buzzit. Shout out to John Harris. He got out there and told the idea of it, and that's fine. I think there's no problem with that. My answer to people when they say, oh, but I'm concerned about telling my idea, and what if somebody steals it? In all honesty, what I've learned over the last 20 years is that an idea is just an idea. At the end of the day, it's the person who executes it. It's really what I call the wherewithal, right? So the knowledge, capability, capacity, bandwidth. There's all these things involved that go into actually creating a company and being successful and growing it. And I've lived that experience, so I can say that for sure, right? There's a lot that goes into it. So just telling an idea is just an idea. And at the end of the day, you know what, if in this example, I'll just use Dave as an example. If I told an idea right now, and you know what, Dave, if you were like, I'm going to drop everything I'm doing in my life because I think this is a really good idea. And I'm going to go and execute this and make it happen. And if you're successful, awesome. Because if you beat me to it, honestly, I probably wasn't going to be successful anyway. I hate to put that dampener on it, but I think that's sort of the reality, right? But at the end of the day, what I've discovered after 20 years and let's call it really the last 10 to 12 years where Vancouver's really become a great ecosystem, a much better ecosystem, and is continuing to grow and shine. Really, the most part, especially after hosting 102 pitch events, most people, when they hear something, they don't say to themselves, "Ooh, I'm going to steal that." They say, "How can I help? How do I get involved?" Right? they're not looking to steal ideas. Most people come because they want to support, because they want to help, because they want to be part of it, right? And so, no, I will add on to the answer to say there is obviously a semblance of, if you're building something that is IP protectable in the sense of like a patent, then for sure, patent rules are you certainly don't go around telling people the secret sauce to that patent before you've been issued the patent. Like, that's obviously a no-no, literally and figuratively. You don't tell people the secret sauce. But as I still say to people, you can still tell the overall concept. Just don't tell them the secret sauce, right? Like, this is what our solution does, or this is what this is going to do, but I'm not going to tell you the inner workings and what's patentable on it, right?
No, so I'm just saying you wouldn't hold your cards close to you. Like, you got to hold some of the cards close to you, in some of those situations, and say, hey, I have the idea. I'll share the little bit of the story of it, but if you want to go further with it, we got to put something down in writing. We got to
Exactamundo. Yeah, that's exactly right. Right. As I said, the pitch is an opportunity to whet people's appetites, to get your ask out there. As I say, every entrepreneur should have an ask. It's the difference between being a entrepreneur and an entrepreneur is having an ask is one of the differences. And building a startup is like raising a baby. You need to feed it. You always need help in some way. So ask for it, right? And that's where, again, a pitch is a great opportunity. Even if you're not fundraising, it's a great opportunity to ask for things like, I'm looking for engineers. I'm looking for a business advisor. Or I'm looking for a marketing specialist, right? Like, whatever that thing is that you're looking for, or even if you're asking for customers, right? Whatever your ask is, ask for it, because you never know who knows who, right? And unless you ask, you don't get. So that's kind of what I've learned for sure over the years. Absolutely.
I want to back to the evidence-based story and on the earliest stage. And you say that it's never late to go for pitching. My problem is if just I have an imagination product, I haven't done it yet. So how can I bring the evidence to that one and actually picture it for someone else? How it can?
Yeah, I'll probably answer this by just showing some. Actually, I'm going to tell you a great example. We've got a client in Petra Alumni. They're fantastic. I highly recommend everybody checks them out. They're called Robbox Tools, ROBBOX Tools, and they've built now the world's first smart drill. It's called the X Drill. So I know you might be like, a drill, that doesn't sound that exciting. But it's really cool. It's got like a interactive, it's AI, you plug into it what you're drilling into, and it adjusts the power and speed and stops drilling at the depth you've set, so you don't accidentally go too far. It's really, really cool. But let me tell you, I will always remember when Andy Matei came in and first pitched at one of our events, obviously pre-COVID. We were live at Launch Academy at the time, and he came in. I'll always remember. Basically, they worked in a metal shop. Him and his son. It's a family-owned business, and they basically just said, "We need better tools. This is ridiculous. Why isn't there smart tools? Why isn't there interchangeable batteries? Like, this is nuts." And I remember it was literally just an idea at that point. I think this was about 3.5 years ago. And he came in with a chunk of metal. Like, picture this. I know we're in a podcast, but he came in with a chunk of metal that looks sort of like a weight that you would lift with your arm, with a iPod taped to it. And he said, "This is kind of what it looks like, I imagine, but more like a drill. But it's going to have an interactive screen on it. This is much heavier than what it will be when it's done. But it's purely conceptual, and right now I'm just pitching to see what people think about having a smart drill." Right? I will tell you, even though it sounds funny, it sounds like a complete joke. And when he first started talking about it, everybody was like, "Who is this crazy, clearly nut bar inventor guy?" But by the time he was done, people were like signing up, and they were saying, "Please let me know when this is ready. This actually sounds really, really cool." And I will tell you right now, I'm telling everybody, they just finished a Kickstarter campaign. They're fundraising right now, and they've built it and are starting to put it to market. It is amazing. I can't say enough about it. It's incredible to see how they've brought it from that idea to now talking about the evidence. The evidence for them was just they did some light customer research. They did some competitive analysis. They took a look at how legacy in their industry particularly was. There wasn't much innovation in this space. So their evidence was just like, look, there's been basically no innovation in power tools in the last like 50, 60 years. There's an opportunity to build smart devices. There already are smart devices like smart fridges, smart washers, like all this stuff. Why not power tools? And that's what brought them to that idea. So the evidence, yeah, you're not going to have obviously sales evidence and all these other things, but you can certainly still have evidence. Absolutely.
So but so when you say the guy showed the iPod and say that, okay, something like that, so it's the person's ability to present, right? It's had something in it. Don't you think that? Or, for example, if imagine someone that is quite shy or introverted and their handling rejection is not high, but it's going to be very difficult for them. So how about, have you ever seen this one that I show a video, a YouTube on my product rather than pitching it by myself?
I'm going to answer that by saying never, ever do that. The reality is especially with earlier stage investors, again, talking from ideation to, let's say, up to seed round, Series A, early stage investors, let's call it like angel investors, that kind of level, or private early. What we're looking for is we're investing in people, right? At the end of the day, we need to believe in you and that you're going to make this happen. A lot of this is, as they say, pie in the sky, a lot of uncertainty. Investing in startups is risky. We can't kid ourselves, right? There's a long journey before there's any kind of return usually. And I don't want to be, Debbie Downer, but the reality is like, it's a long journey. There's a lot of variables. A lot of things can happen, right? COVID, right? So, a lot of uncertainty that can happen. So, I have to, when I'm looking at a pitch, I'm not just looking at, how well are they pitching, but also I'm looking at their plan. I'm looking at who they are as a person. As Simon Sinek says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, right? So, and the average business realistically also pivots 5 to 7 times before they really, truly figure it out, right? And so you have to invest in somebody knowing that, or hoping that they have that figure it outness, that they're going to get through those pivots. They're going to figure it out. They're going to make good decisions, or they're going to ask when they don't know, and they're going to seek advice, and they're going to be coachable, and they're going to, so talking again about introversion or shyness, almost all of us have that. But again, isn't that the entrepreneurial way, is to, what did I hear the other day? The next step after discomfort is life. Right. So I might be quoting that wrong, but the reality is like you can't be an entrepreneur and you have to live in uncomfortability, right? Everything's a learning experience. You're always learning. I've been doing this for 20 years and I'm still learning. Right. So, you have to eventually get out there and try it. And yeah, you might not do it well, but that's why it's important to practice first and not, get in front of an investor without ever practicing before. And then, because first impressions do mean a lot. So take opportunities to practice, get feedback, all that stuff.
Paul, I just have a couple of questions. One of the questions that comes to mind on this is that, if you are, like, say, an introvert and this is not your strength, is this an opportunity to find someone to partner with that does have the strength? Or is this or do you just kind of go it anyway and you see where it goes?
It depends. So it depends. There's a couple of answers to that. So when you're a founder of a business, so let's say you're the original founder, and the expectation for most, again, investors, whatever the definition might be of that, the expectation is sort of that whoever the CEO is or the original founder is probably going to be the main pitcher. And honestly, that really has to be the case because the original founder almost always is going to be the one that's most connected to the passion, right? That they're the ones that are going to be connected mostly to that why, the closest to it, whatever that might be. And I think that will increase your chances of success because that will generally shine through when you're pitching, right? You'll give people a better sense of that why and why should I believe in you as opposed to somebody else, right? And seeing that from an original founder. So I want to answer that by saying I have heard many times throughout the years, and I've been asked many, many times about, well, Paul, I'm thinking about getting a co-founder. And usually it's something like I'm thinking about getting a CTO, or I'm thinking about getting a COO. And I'm like, you just started a business 3 months ago. Like, do you really need a CTO or a COO? So why are you saying that? And a lot of times their answer is, oh, well, because I need somebody to do development and I don't have enough to pay them. So I just want to make them a CTO and give them shares so that they will do the work. But having a founder and a partner, and this is to answer your question, having a partner, the thing I've discovered over the 20 years is having a partner, a co-founder, a business partner, whatever you want to call it, it's a relationship, right? You can't just give that away freely. It's like having a relationship in real life. You need to date, you need to know each other, you need to know if you can communicate, you need to know if you can work together. You have to go through tough times, good times, and figure it out. Because if you don't go through that process, just handing somebody a title and giving them equity, especially a lot of people don't value equity the same they do money, right? So for me, I get the value of equity. I've been through this many times, right? And I'm not meaning that to brag. It's just I've lived the experience, right? So now I get the value of equity. But somebody who's maybe a bit younger in their entrepreneurial career might not get that. And so, of course, they'll always be steered towards what's going to make me more money. And then all of a sudden, after 3 months, they're like, oh, well, I took a full-time job over here because I'm getting paid for it. And I haven't been paid from this startup for 3 months. And it's like, oh, okay, but you're the CTO and you have shares in the company. It's like, oh, whoops, right? And it creates a lot of issues. I would say that the original founder should be the one pitching, and don't just try to bring in somebody just to do that. And actually, I'm going to really quickly say, over the years, I've been asked several times by startups, Paul, could we pay you to come and pitch for us? I tried it once.
Yeah.
It didn't go so well. The investors were like, why are you pitching instead of the founders of the company? How do I answer that? Right? Like, well, because they weren't confident enough and didn't want to do it. That doesn't really look good for them, right? So, I've almost always, I've turned down all of those ever since. I mean, when I accepted that, I think I was like 25 years old. So that was 15 years ago. I didn't know better at the time. But since then, I get asked every once in a while, usually once every 3 to 6 months. And I turn it down every time now because it's, at the end of the day, it needs to be the original founders or generally the CEO. Unless you're at much later stages, like I have seen Series A, Series B companies where the COO goes out and pitches, or the CTO in some cases. And that's fine because now you're spreading between multiple people and they're all experienced, right? So, yeah.
Well, I think, and you're seeding to something else. I feel a second podcast coming on around fundraising. I hear it coming out there in that conversation.
For sure.
But before I go there, I really got to ask the one last question here. And I know we've asked it in multiple different ways, but what are truly investors looking for in these pitches? You've talked to it about it all the way through our journey, but maybe we can wrap it up a little bit.
Yeah, you want me to put a pretty bow on it, I think is what I'm hearing. So, what are investors looking for? Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they're all going to have certain things that they're specifically looking for. Every investor is a little bit different. So it might be things depending on their portfolio. They might be looking for things to complement. All that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, what I've really discovered over the past, let's call it 15 years that I've been pitching and presenting and working with investors, the thing that I've found most often, like I said, they're really investing in people, right? So, I've been very lucky in my career that I've had investors that have said, like, look, I had one in fact, actually a great example. I have one investor who we went for coffee one day, and I just said to him, I'm really curious why, since you're not interested in what I'm building, like in the actual business itself, you've got no experience with it. Like, why? I'm curious why you invested, right? Not that I'm like against it. I'm happy you did, and you're amazing, and all that stuff. But like, I'm just curious because I'd love to know. And this isn't meant to brag about myself. I'm just using this as an example. And he said, at the end of the day, I believed in you. And I believed that no matter what happened, you would figure it out. And this is a tough business, the particular one I was fundraising for at the time. And he goes, it's in retail tech, and that's a traditionally very tough business. And he was like, but at the end of the day, I believed you'd figure it out, and that you had strong acumen, and you had a plan, and that you would, figure it out. So it was really my belief in you that convinced me to put in that money. And he said it wasn't a lot of money, but he's like, I put in what I could, and was happy to do so because I'm investing in you and your team at the end of the day. So I think I would answer that with they really are investing in the person and the team. And the team could be solo, but it's very rare that investors invest in solopreneurs. That's extremely rare. So the individual and the team, or the upcoming team, and the plan. So they're really looking for that you have a plan to execute, and that you're going to execute that plan. And you know what? Let's be real. All investors, almost all of them, are experienced in some way. They're not daft. They know that not everything goes according to plan. None of us have a crystal ball. I think. Maybe Dave's hiding one in his room there. But, the reality is most of us don't have a crystal ball. We can't tell the future. But if we have a plan, it might not go according to plan, but at least we can adjust the plan. We can pivot. We can evolve, right? And even Volition, my company, had to evolve and pivot strongly in the last year. But we figured it out, and we figured it out together. And now we're like doubling in size in the next bit. So, so it is possible for sure. So people.
Awesome.
People and plan, I think, would be the answer.
I love it, my friend. I love it. I actually have the crystal ball. Nobody can see it right now. It's right here.
Nice.
I have all the answers, guys. Come see me. Talk to me. No,
there
Paul, no, this has been great. We'd love, we love this conversation. We have to put a challenge out there, my friend. Can you put a challenge out to our students, to our listeners? Let's see what they can do with it.
For sure. Well, I mean, I would challenge you. I can share a workbook from Volition on how to build a pitch and presentation. And I guess for my own part as a pitch and presentation coach, I guess I'm a bit biased. I really honestly think everyone should pitch. And everyone should practice a pitch and get that experience under their belt. There's a bit of conversation as to whether and where investor pitching is going to go in the future. That itself may evolve, but I don't think the actual process of pitching and improving your confidence, as it were, and getting more experience and getting out there and amplifying your message and all that kind of stuff, I don't think that's going to go anywhere. It's probably more important than ever, to be honest, now that we don't have like live networking events in person at this point. So I'm going to challenge everybody to get out there and create a pitch and to pitch. And if you need to do that, Volition has pitch events. There's lots of online pitch events. But I can share a workbook and we can throw it out there, and I challenge you to build a pitch and get out there.
I love it, my friend. I love it. I feel a lot of synergy coming along here. We'll have to put that out to the students and get them working on that, and then we can figure out some a pitch thing with Volition. I love it. Thank you, my friend. Great conversation today.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Dave. And that was another episode of Innovation Fuel Podcast.
To all entrepreneurs and managers out there, we have ambitious students here at UCW who would love to hear from you and help you with your business through our internship, our capstone program. If you think you have a wonderful story or a challenge that you want to share with our students and our audience that you think they can benefit from, we want to hear from you. We want that information. We want you to be a part of this show. We also want you to join our mentorship program. We've got a great mentorship program to help students as they move on their educational journey towards getting into a career or launching a new opportunity. So reach out to us, connect with us at www.ucanwest.ca/Innovation Fuel.
You have just listened to the Innovation Fuel podcast with your hosts, Dave and Gelareh. Subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Google, or Spotify. Join us next week for another innovative story. Thank you for listening and have a great week.